readers. I am bringing to you the Fall Time Cozy Time book tag. I was tagged by Patty at I Smell Books, and the original tag was, the original came from Sam from Novels and Nonsense, and I will link both of their channels below. You should go check them out because they're awesome. First one is Crunchy Leaves. Don't you just love crunchy leaves in the fall? I know I do. It's one of my favorite things to like run through crunchy leaves. It's awesome. Anyway, everything is full of color, reds and oranges and yellows. So pick a book with a cover full of reds, oranges, and yellows, and I chose Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows because it really just screams fall. Like, look at that. It's orange and yellow, and there's a little red, and then there's Voldemort right there, but it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful cover. It's one of my favorite covers in this edition, and I was gonna say, oh, and like the book is not that pretty. But so when I heard this question, this was the first book that came to mind. And so yes, that is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and it looks like fall. Second one is Cozy Sweater. It is getting cold outside. It's finally cold enough to get into a nice cozy sweater. So what book brings you the warm and fuzzies? So I chose Love Comes Softly, and not just the first book, but the entire series by Janet Oak. And the reason why I chose this was just a fun, easy read, but also I remember reading the entire series over Christmas break one year, and so it just reminds me of that time of year. So whenever I think about that, I think about sitting at my parents' house underneath a blanket and wrapped up and all warm and cozy, and it's just a really, really good story. So that is Love Comes Softly by Janet Oak. The third. There's a fall storm. The wind is howling. Woo! That sounded more like an owl, didn't it? Anyway, the wind is howling and the storm is coming. So what book do you get under the covers and read during the storm? And I chose Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I haven't actually read this book, but when I think of like a storm, you want to read something that kind of is kind of scary or intense, and I've heard this is pretty intense, or it's a monster story. So I plan on reading this in October for Halloween, because I think this is one of those books that's not going to be so like scary, because I don't really like really scary books, and it's a good book to read, I think, hopefully, during a storm. That is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. The next one, number 4. Number 4 is Cool Crisp Air. So who is the coolest character that you know that you would want to be, or you want to take their place? So I chose Lucy in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader specifically, but she used to ride on a big ship. And Lucy is my favorite character in these books. She's so loyal, and she loves Aslan, and she's so kind, and she loves everyone, and she just trusts, and she's awesome. And this one, she gets to ride in a big ship, and that's awesome. So I would want to trade places with Lucy. That's who I'd want to trade places with. There you go. There you go. Okay, next one. Where was I? Hot Apple Cider. I love Hot Apple Cider. Okay, Hot Apple Cider. What underhyped book do you want to see become the next biggest and hottest thing? I chose Through Painted Deserts by Donald Miller. This is not a new book or anything. I had a hard time thinking of a book that I've read recently that wasn't a popular book, which is kind of sad, because I don't necessarily like just reading streamlined books, but apparently that's all I've read lately. So I looked at my shelf, and this is one of my favorite books. And when you think of Donald Miller, you're most likely going to think Blue Like Jazz if you know him. And I personally feel like this is a better book. Blue Like Jazz was the first book that I read of Donald Miller's, but this one is my favorite. It's not as scatterbrained as Blue Like Jazz. It's very linear, and it's just a great story, and I feel like Donald really found his voice really well, and it's just a great story. It's so good. So good. So good. So good. Okay, so it's really cold outside. You have to put a coat on and a scarf and mittens. So what book that has a really embarrassing cover that when you're in public you hide it? So this one doesn't necessarily have an embarrassing cover. It's the name that's rather embarrassing, and that is The Virgin of Small Plains. I guess it does kind of have an embarrassing cover. Yeah. It's a murder mystery book, and what I can remember is actually a really good story, and it kept you on the edge of your seat. You were wondering what was happening, but it just has an unfortunate name. I mean, it's just unfortunate. And a funny story, I was reading this book when I was applying for this job, and I went in for the interview, and of course they had asked me, so what books are you reading? This was the only book I was reading, so I was like, The Virgin of Small Plains? And the guy just laughed at me like, what kind of book is that? So I had to explain like what it was about, but it's just unfortunate, you know, like you want to, when someone asks you that when you're getting interviewed for a job, you want to say something like William Shakespeare or The Catcher in the Rye or something that's, you know, like good and not The Virgin of Small Plains. Yeah, so that's my little story in the book that if I read this again, I will hide the cover because it's just embarrassing. The last one is Pumpkin Spice, and this isn't book related, but it is what is your favorite fall comfort food? Anything pumpkin for me. Pumpkin pie, pumpkin cake, pumpkin bread, pumpkin cookies, pumpkin lattes. Anything pumpkin is delicious. I love it. And stuffing. I love stuffing. Mashed potatoes. Soup. Soup is good. Bread. Bread is good too. Yes. That's it, guys. So I'm going to tag 3 people. First one, Amy from Booktubing Amy. The second is Lily from Always Bookish. The third one is Maddie and B from Heart Full of Books. So happy reading, guys, and I guess I'll see you on the flip side. Yay!